Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. It's so nice to put the face behind the music. Like I love to make those connections, like after reviewing the music. But how's your day been so far?
Cool. Going well. Yeah, just kind of dealing with stuff. The record comes out in a few weeks here, so kind of on top of a bunch of that stuff. I actually just received the LPs in the mail, so I'm just which is exciting. Yeah.
That is exciting. I saw that you are like pressing vinyl, and I think that's like awesome. Some Nights is your first ever solo album, correct?
Correct. Yeah, yeah.
The first four singles off this album, Steps Taken, Lemonade, After Later, and Early August Rain, have been like released. How do you feel about these singles like being out in the world? Is it making you excited for your like album release day, just having these like singles out there?
Definitely. It's like it's kind of been a long time coming to like get this music into like existing for me. Like I've been a part of a lot of records and have played in a lot of bands over the years. And everything I've done kind of has always been collaborative. It's been like band format where there's kind of like it's co-written, like people have equal say and like, democratic decision making and stuff. So this record is like a different step into that. It was like, okay, this is the record that I'm making and I'm making all the calls and like it gets to be what I want it to be. So it's very like liberating to kind of like finally have this music like being shared because I think like even just for like my own just like artistic identity and stuff, it's really nice to like share what I've been up to with people because I think I'm known for the work I've done in other projects, but this feels like something that is like very much representative of what I'm interested in and things I want to make and explore and experiment with. So yeah, it's been really nice and it's been well received, and I'm definitely like happy to have a record coming closely in behind it here.
Yeah, it's very like individual based, and it's just like what you said, representative of like yourself instead of like a group or any other collaborations. But yeah, that's probably
Mhm.
very special to just have like your own project where it's truly like yourself.
Totally.
So yeah, like going off the fact that your entire discography right now is the contents of your upcoming album, why did you decide to have your first project be a full-length album as opposed to like an EP or a collection of individual singles?
Yeah, I think it just like turned out to be an album because the material existed, like this is like we actually like when we got into like whittling it down to making the decision on the 10 songs that are on the record, it was like we started with a list of more, there was like maybe 20, 22 or 23 songs that I had like kind of existed in my, hard drive of like sessions and things that I had been working on over the last few years. And I was like, just making music to make music. I never, like a few years ago, I didn't necessarily intend on this needing to be a solo entity and project that came out because I was very busy touring with a bunch of the bands I was playing in. And I was just kind of doing this stuff like on the side for myself. And but when it came to be like, hey, you know what, there's maybe enough here, and I involved my good friend Will, who's in Los Angeles, to kind of like finish this with me at a studio down there. He was like, we just basically naturally whittled the list down. We just picked the ones that like spoke to both of us and were exciting to work on. So it kind of became this 10 songs, and it just made sense to be a record, I guess, at that point.
Yeah.
Although, yeah, playing the game of like releasing one song at a time seems to be the way to at least just like get people's interest and try and rope them in into paying attention. But I believe in the record, so I really love that there's like a full collection of work to share that it feels a little bit more like representative of like a full narrative and like a clearer picture of like the diversity of like maybe what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, why hold yourself back when you have like all these works where they all come together to tell a story? I mean, why restrict
Hmm.
yourself? So I love that. Yes.
Totally.
Steps Taken was the first release single that you ever put out there. This single kind of like allowed people to kind of get a glimpse at who you are as an artist and perhaps what like the leading message is for the album. Like, can you explain why you decided to release this single first?
Yeah, I really like. I was always excited about that song in the collection of the tunes, just because I felt like it had like a like. I love how short and immediate it is. You know, it's like a 2.5 minute song kind of thing. So I it felt like the also like the right way to kind of hit hard and strong and fast and like not drop like a 5 minute like slow burner that would maybe burn people out too quick.
Yeah.
But I also just I had the opportunity to make the music video that came with that song with a good friend of mine here in Calgary, and we kind of just put our heads together, and he had this concept of like the plants and flowers kind of growing out of me and taking me over from the inside out, and that like his visual treatment really aligned with some of the themes that were in the song for me lyrically. So being able to make the video and having like the whole kind of like thing to push was like the reason that one came first, really, because kind of practical reasons in a lot of ways. But it felt like a nice like opening statement as well. I liked that it was pretty bold and like fast paced and energetic and a little bit spazzy, and it felt like a nice contrast to maybe like what I have put out in the past with like some of my projects being like leaning more into the like more earnest singer songwriter or like mellow alt folk pop world kind of stuff. So this was like a nice like, hey, check this out. This is like this one might surprise you, but this is what I'm interested in kind of thing. So it felt fun to just like put something out that was maybe more left field.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it was very bold, like especially that music video. It kind of sets up that symbolism. Like, I'm glad you touched on the music video because my next question was like about it. Like, yeah, like the image, the strong imagery of the flowers like growing out of your body and like kind of taking you over as the video progresses. Like, how did you guys kind of come up with the idea and what's like the symbolism behind it? And kind of like, did you want that to be the driving narrative of like the album?
Yeah. There's a lot of like for me, the record lyrically and thematically is definitely about like navigating a lot of like kind of like that inner turmoil of like battling just like where you stand in certain situations. I had like moved through a like pretty dramatic relationship that was kind of like riddled with like just a lot of like heaviness, and so in working through that, a lot of that came through in the record. And I think when I brought the song to the filmmaker, another Brock actually, funnily enough, he had this concept that we kind of developed that was about, for him it was about his filmmaking and artistic journey, like kind of eating him from the inside, putting so much of himself into a craft, and like how where we kind of landed was like where something so beautiful, whether it be like your artistic work or something like a relationship with someone, it's like it feels beautiful and like it wants to grow in the way that these flowers do, but like ultimately it was kind of eating us from the inside, and like these flowers that grow eventually turn into like this, the beast that comes out of my chest and pulls the heart through my torso in the video, is like how something beautiful can ultimately consume us and like be kind of our downfall if we're not careful, was kind of our concept for that, um, which does permeate through the whole record, but it was quite specific to that song. So it was like felt like a really copacetic match there.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's a beautiful concept. Taking like it can also like symbolize like that growth, like like what you said. I think that's a very important like symbolic. Yeah, I could see that like while I was
Mm,
listening through the record, I could see like that theme coming back. So it was very
cool.
strong of you to like come off with that and kind of like like lead with that narrative. So yeah,
Yeah,
it
I
was
appreciate that.
yeah, of course. Was this the first time you worked on a music video like ever?
I've made a handful of videos over like my like career putting music out. This was the first one that I got to be like super involved from the ground floor in like the planning and the concept and treatment and like who was going to be involved. And we also just were lucky enough to have like a larger budget to play with to do some of those like more like cinematic shots with like the dollies and like gimbals and flying around cameras and like cool probe lenses and stuff that I think really bring like a three-dimensional like cinematic quality to the video. So it was
Yeah.
my first time really engaging in something that was like that produced. I've made like a lot of like indie DIY, shoot it yourself with your band and have a fun day kind of videos in the past, but this one was like really felt super legit, which was really fun way to like celebrate my like a debut release. It felt really yeah, it just felt right. It was nice to get to lean into that.
Yeah, it was like very intricate. It was very like I was like so intrigued the whole time like watching it because I could
Cool.
tell like the like dolly going around and
Mhm.
it was very well produced. I really
Cool, cool.
yeah,
Yeah, it was
so
fun to like include some of that stuff in the shots too, where you can see the track and you can see the backdrop. It's like a little bit like you're getting to see that this is a music video gone wrong, you know?
yes. Yes, I really
Hmm.
like that. It was like in that like enclosed room kind of, so it was like its own space.
Yeah,
But yeah, very, very beautiful. Um,
cool.
so yeah, I kind of wanted to touch, I know you kind of already touched on this a little bit, but like dive into like your history as like being a producer and collaborating with other artists. Like, so
Hmm.
before you released your own music, like you were a producer and collabed with other artists on nearly 50 records, like what made you decide to start your own project and release your own stuff?
Yeah, I've as well as like producing and like being a band member in a collaborative context, I like have always been a writer in those contexts, like lyrically and instrumentally. So I've always like brought that to the table in projects. I guess the reason it started to just be embodied as like a solo effort was this music or like the songs I would typically have written would always, for almost a decade, like be filtered into one of my bands called Rally. And the other primary writer in that, this woman named Clea Anais, she had like we had kind of taken a break with the band, and she put out a solo record last year as well. So I was like, okay, you know, if we're like giving some space to this project, like maybe some of these material that maybe would have ended up there is just I'll kind of do my own thing too for a little bit here. Um, so it kind of was just like a natural progression, really. It was just like I wasn't stopping the writing and work, and I just needed somewhere to put it.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, you just let the creative like flow like come and you didn't stop it. And I think that creates
Hmm.
like amazing stuff. I mean, we're getting a record from you on March 18th and
Cool.
that's
Yeah.
awesome. Like, but yeah.
Honestly, yeah, it was like in a way because I knew there wasn't like it didn't have to exist in a kind of already established band that maybe had like
Mhm.
set up like expectations for the kind of music we make and that it was pretty freeing because it was like, okay, this is going to be my record. It's the first thing. Like I can kind of do whatever I want, you know, is kind of how it felt. So, which was like a nice, even if it was just like a psychological barrier, it meant that I wasn't like in my own way as much and was just like, hey, I'm just going to do whatever I'm curious about today, you know? And
Yeah.
that's kind of how it came alive.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it seems very like freeing. Like you don't have to
Hmm.
like make sure that your bandmates, you're abiding to like their style or it, it's very like yourself and you just get to like allow everything to like release. But yeah.
Totally, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So are there like any specific skills you learned as either being a producer or being a part of like your bands that you've used while making your own music?
Hmm. Yeah. Honestly, I like the biggest thing for me is like being a good listener, you know, and like not only to the things coming out of the speakers and like the sounds that are happening, but like to the people you're in the room with. And like sometimes I find like making music with people, a lot of that like listening is also like kind of non-verbal stuff, you know, it's like being able to like look between the lines and kind of like understand how something is making someone feel, you know, or something like things like that, because it is such a vulnerable process making music, especially when you're starting to work with other people. So for me, it's like it's been that, and it's I think that's what has allowed me to work with such a diverse range of people and like styles and genres and everything is that I'm really just try to approach it as like, okay, I'm working with a human here. I don't care if they're making like a folk record or a rap record. It's like what are we trying to make this feel like, and just really leaning into like how that translates. So that's kind of like my main, I feel like that's like the biggest skill of like a collaborator or someone working in a studio with other people is like being a people person more than like needing to be the best audio engineer in the world. It's like, how do you make sure people are comfortable and able to emote?
Definitely. Like that's so important, and it's good that you like are aware of that and you use that because I feel like that's what drives the music, and that's very important.
Hmm.
But yeah.
Hmm.
I know you've already touched upon working with Will Maclellan at Sound
Yeah.
City Studios in Los Angeles. Can you tell me a little bit about that experience and why you chose to work with him?
Yeah. Will and I have actually been friends like since we were kids. We grew up together in Calgary, and we like played in bands together from the time we were like 13, 14 years old. Like we were playing music and like learning, on a how to record on like a Tascam 2-track recorder when we were like in junior high together. So we've
Wow.
been doing this together for a long, long time. And he plays in my band Rally as well. So we've done a lot of music making over the years. And I really just like, I don't, he's the person I like trust the most in the world. Like I have no hesitation sharing things with him, even if I know it's a dumb idea, like I feel safe sharing things with him. So when I had made a version of this record myself at my studio here and then started sharing that stuff with Will, and he was excited enough about it that he invited me to come, bring it to life a little further at the studio where he works. He's become a really great engineer and like works at Sound City with like huge acts these days. He's doing like Phoebe's records and like big projects. So it was really a treat to get to go down there and then also like tap into some of the musicians he works with in that scene. We had like Matt Chamberlain playing drums and Sam Gendel is playing saxophone all over the record. And it's like some of my heroes. So it was like really cool to get to work with those people.
That is cool. I mean, that's so special having someone that you've known for like many years, like work on your first like album with
Totally.
you. And I mean, that trust, like you were talking about, you're able to be vulnerable with a person and like
Hmm.
share, like no idea is bad. Like you can just share like any idea and you trust them with it. But
Exactly. And it was just like, it's nice. I've like more and more become a believer in the fact that like doing this needs to be like fun. It's like it's such a privilege to get to like make music and do this for like with my time. So it's in doing that, it was like if I'm gonna make this record and I have to bring someone else on board, like why would I not do it with someone that I like just love hanging out with and we can like have it be, serious and we're gonna make the best record we can, but it's also gonna be full of laughs and goofing around. And I feel like some of that is like what actually makes it a better, more serious record in the end, anyways.
definitely. And I feel like from like the singles you've released, we can like feel that energy of just that I don't know, just like that fun and like creative
Cool.
energy that you guys kind of like foster and we can see that like translated. But yeah.
Appreciate that a lot. Thanks.
Yeah. So this album has like kind of different sounds to it. It has like an indie rock edge with like a toned down and soft like angelic side like on After Later and like Evidence and Early August Rain. Like
Hmm.
but they're all like fueled by like an immersive like production touch since you
Hmm.
have experience with being a producer. Like, did you kind of have an idea of what you wanted this album to sound like before working on it, or did it kind of sonically develop on its own?
It was a bit of both worlds. I like it, and it evolved at various stages, I think. I think when I was first setting out to do it, I was like really interested in truly just letting like the curiosities of like what I was moved by steer the ship because I didn't want to set up too many like restrictions. I was really just wanting to let ideas happen and then like judge them later, you know? So I really tried to just like let things flow, track the ideas that came, deal with, like not be precious, delete things if they weren't right, and, try a lot of different like permutations of how they could be presented. As far as like how it ultimately came together sonically, I will definitely like give as much credit to Will in that because I like was really happy to relinquish some of that control once I had spent a good year inside the songs alone all before taking them to him. So when he had fresh perspectives or ideas or like, hey, maybe we should like try this one this way or here, like try this instrument because Sound City has so many like cool things we could just play around with. It was like, yeah, I'm down, man. It's like I don't have that at my house, so like might as well give it a try, like and it just like created some like great surprises. I don't think we were too concerned about like what the overall like sonic aesthetic was going to be because it doesn't feel that hemmed in by like a genre that is like super specific. It, like you said, kind of touches in a few different worlds, and I was okay with that. I wanted it to be like a diverse representation of just like what I like.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. Like, I think it was like very enjoyable hearing like different sounds. It wasn't like the same thing over and over. It was just a constant
Cool.
shift and like saying different story. I mean, it paints different like narratives and it was very
Mhm.
intriguing. Yeah, I really liked it. But
Cool. I started thinking about it as like each song kind of being um, like different characters, kind of. Or like to me, they are like different iterations of characters that I recognize in myself, basically, where it's like, okay, yes, I have the like very introspective, after later, soft, understated side, but then I also want to have some fun and put on the like, sleazy club dance track that some nights is, and like it's like those to me can coexist and like they are not actually that far apart because they feel very like encapsulated by those just being different aspects of the way I think about things.
definitely. I love how you said like they can coexist because you're not like you're not enclosing yourself in like a certain sound or a different story. You're
Hmm.
letting these different characters coexist, and I think that's very cool to like have on an album. But
Sweet, sweet, thanks.
yeah. So I know you kind of touched on some of like people you worked with, like those your some of your like music idols that you've looked up to and like Will, but are there any
Mhm.
other like central influences that have helped you in your process of shaping your sound on this album?
Yeah, on this record, I mean, it's like because it was so insular, it was a lot of just like kind of like turning stones over and like seeing how I felt about them in isolation, which was actually new for me because in most contexts, it's like, okay, we're jamming and we're seeing how the songs feel in the room with the band and people are bringing lines and stuff. Or, this time I was like, okay, I'm used to having like a cello player or a keyboard player who has bringing ideas, but now I'm like, okay, I hear that, but I'm now having to put on their shoes and like think about string arrangements or think about these things, which were always things I wanted to explore, but I was like never had to kind of because there's people to do it.
Yeah.
So it just like allowed me to kind of like open a couple more doors for things that I have been interested in. That being said, there's definitely like people, Clea, who is a part of Rally, it continues to be like a big checkpoint for me because she's also familiar with my writing, and I just respect her opinions with that stuff a lot. So I was sharing like demo versions with her at various stages. There's like a close musical community here where I was getting feedback and like just not even feedback where I was taking people's notes, but just like, hey, check out this tune I'm working on, and like seeing how they responded to it. And like sometimes just like putting something on with someone else in the room really can like make you think about it differently without them having to say anything at all.
Yeah.
So I was doing a lot of that once they were at that like kind of close to finish stage. It would be like, hey, check this one out. Let's go for a drive. I want to play you something I'm working on. And it's like, I'm sitting there like hoping that their head is going to start bobbing. And if it wasn't, it's like, okay, maybe I need to check something out, or things like that, where it was just like subconscious assessment of how people were reacting to the songs.
Yeah, definitely. I like that like skill you were talking about like earlier about like just listening and watching people's like reactions to get a sense of like, oh, like
Mm,
how are they reacting to the song? Do I have to like change? Could I like up it more or something? But
totally.
I think that's important. Yeah. So I have a few more questions for
Cool,
you.
cool.
So all these songs, I know I've already touched on this, but all these songs are very unique. I mean, they're different characters, like you said, each kind of having like their own moment. Do you have a favorite on the album that either means a lot to you or was just like super fun to make?
Yeah, I really am excited to release the title track some nights. It's just like it has like an energy to it to me that is like fun, you know? It's like it's not it's funny because it comes from like a serious subject matter to me. Like it's a reflection on like going through some like real like turbulent times. And it's, you know, the even though it's very bluntly stated, like some nights are all right, some nights are all night. It's like, okay, some things are good and sometimes they go south without you expecting it, you know? But I really like the way we dressed it up as like a kind of just like a relentless, like dancey song. Because I've never got to explore that world in other projects where it's just like forcing a groove at people that feels like energized. And also the process for making that one, we just got to like really explore the studio in a like a cool way where we were doing like just like fun experiments with like binaural recording heads and like, you know, blasting the song through the big speakers and recording it from on the other side of the door to like make it sound like you're outside the club and like, you know, just like weird like analog recording techniques that really made it feel fun and like
Mhm.
alive as opposed to just sitting at a laptop all day, like playing with plugins or whatever. You know, it was like we really tried to like make it feel real and like the music was existing in a space and like could be interacted with and felt. So that song has a lot of that energy to it for me. So I'm excited about that one for sure.
Yeah, I love it. That seems like a very like immersive experience instead of just like once like on your laptop just like zoom
Exactly.
just there. But yeah, that's so fun. That's very I love that process of kind of like using the space to create music and
Mm,
recording behind the door. That's so fun. But
totally.
yeah, so my final question for you, you've already released two music videos for Steps Taken and Lemonade. Do you have any more creative plans for this album, such as releasing any more music videos or perhaps like performing it live that you can share?
We there's going to be another like proper full length music video for Some Nights that comes out with the record on March 18th. And we had some fun with that one. It was just like a kind of non-narrative video this time though. There's less of like a storyline and more of a just like, hey, what are some like wacky scenes that are me doing some dumb stuff that was fun. So that one is fun and is like edited in a really fast-paced kind of like collage kind of way.
Mm,
Really excited about that. I just actually saw an email come in with an edit, so I got to check that out
nice.
this afternoon, which is exciting. And then we have made some like fun things. Like I do a lot of work for like animated films, doing sound design and stuff. So I'm exposed to that world, and we made these animated flip books with risograph printing to go with like the first 30 orders of the LP gets like an animated flip book and some stuff like that that just is like getting to have fun making art with friends.
Definitely. That's so cool. I love that. Yeah, it's very cool when like artists go beyond just the music and create like whether that be like pressings or just like little like
Mhm.
things like that. I think it helps like the listeners like immerse themselves in the world and kind of have like more tangible stuff besides just the music.
Totally.
But yeah.
Cool,
Yeah,
cool, totally.
thank you for sharing. Yeah, before we leave, do you have any final words you would like to share like regarding this release? Anything else?
I don't know. You had some great questions, so I feel like I've spouted a lot at you. But yeah, I appreciate you taking the time and thanks for listening and having like an actual, you know, some real questions that were in response to the music. I feel like yeah, it's so nice to know people are listening out there. So
Yeah, it's such a great record. I mean, congrats on your first ever release. I mean,
thank
it's
you.
in what, it's 15 days, so that's
Yeah, it's right around the
exciting.
corner for sure. Totally.
Yeah, so I wish you best of luck in the future as an artist, and I will be listening on
Thanks
release
so
day.
much.
But yeah, thank you
Cheers.
for taking the
Where are
time.
you based?
I'm based in Columbus, Ohio. So,
Cool, cool. Sweet.
and then you're what are you based in Canada or Los
Yeah, I'm
Angeles?
in Calgary is my
Oh, okay.
home. Yeah, and I've got like a studio here in Calgary, but I am between here and LA a lot just because of that being where my friends and collaborators are with stuff. But Canada's home basically. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Well, that's so cool that you can like bounce between the two different studios,
Yeah, totally.
two
Totally.
different creative spaces. That's important.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I appreciate your time. Have a
Oh,
good
likewise. Yeah.
one. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Thanks. Yeah.